Hello, YouTube. I have been uploading every so often, somewhat consistently, every 2 weeks, trying to sync up with the full moon and new moon. And although I missed my last, I guess you could say, deadline, I still want to continue this upload process of these kind of off the cuff, exploratory, unscripted stream of consciousness videos because I found them more beneficial than not, and my channel is still small, so I can do, I guess, whatever experimental style of upload that I want without any necessarily negative pushback, because there's hardly any feedback, and the feedback that I do get is thankfully really positive. uh, it's great to see comments whenever they pop up. It's very unexpected still. I don't imagine that what I'm saying is especially substantive or interesting to most people, but I'm at least able to communicate to myself through an online platform. And so if you've decided to stick around, thanks for being here. I do plan to gradually in time put more effort and energy and thought and work into these videos. This isn't going to be a forever thing. I mean, I might always come back to this format of free flowing association type video where ideas just kind of go here and there, to and fro. But I do want to get more pointed in some of my content, and in order to do that, I mean, I've been working on a project in the background that I haven't really talked about with a lot of people, but it's a video I'm very excited about. But it's because I'm putting so much thought into that, it's going through that, creative process where it's like I'm giving all my energy to this, and then I kind of get stuck and there's an obstacle or a roadblock or just general impediment. And in order to move on from that, I take a break. And of course, life is also happening at the same time. So it's very natural for these things to happen in cycles. And because I'm giving myself the space to be as creative and nitpicky as I feel like I need to be, I'm not trying to rush it because, like, who's that deadline for? Obviously, I want to move on to other projects, but I also want to enjoy the process. And I feel like the more I'm able to get this one right, the next one will come that much more easily or effortlessly, even though it is still going to be quite a lot of effort. And I do care a lot about the projects that I engage creatively, but I also am aware that perfectionism has been crippling in the past and kept me from uploading anything at all, even beginning a project. And that's something I'm trying to get around with these uploads, where it's just casual conversation, talking. And I guess it's not necessarily conversation because you have no way of responding while I record these, but I do take into account any of the past comments in my previous videos, which, like I said, isn't that much, but it is more than enough to put a smile on my face. And so moving on from that, and just giving you a heads up that maybe in the future, not so distant future, this channel will house different kinds of content, more experimental forms, as I try to distance myself from this kind of groove that I've started getting into the rhythm of, but then falling off, just because there's a pressure nowadays to create and share instantly and have that be time consuming, not just to consume media, but to consume all aspects of life into the media making machine. And I'm aware of that, and I want to figure out how to put up boundaries and figure out, where do I begin, where do I end, where does the image of me start in relation to that. I want to separate my idea of myself from what's actually happening in my body, and be present, practice mindfulness, embodiment, be nourishing, and take care of myself. Those are all things that are important, and I've struggled with them in the past for a variety of reasons that I will open up about eventually. It's not necessarily that I don't want to talk about them now. I do. It's just that talking about those things can be messy and confusing if I haven't given like a structure to them beforehand. And so yeah, I could jump into like my thoughts on depression or anxiety or mental illness right now. I could talk about my experiences in the Christian faith and what it was like leaving that faith and realizing that I don't believe actually that Christian God exists, or I no longer identify as a Christian, and how it was kind of retroactive. And it's not that I made a conscious decision per se, it's that it just kind of happened. Like a year and a half went by and I was in such a dark place, and I kind of like woke up one day. It was in the evening, but it felt like my eyes were opened, and I just realized that what I thought I had believed for my entire life was not, in fact, what I actually believed. And that had repercussions and reverberations in every aspect of my life in all the years since. It's almost been a full decade since that day in which I realized I no longer identify as Christian, and in many ways I've been trying to piece together a story to center myself ever since. And so if that's something that's interesting to you, please, subscribe, comment, follow along. But of course, talking about it in a format like this where it's not directly supposed to be that, it's more of just like my mind wandering, where my thoughts go to. It's good for me, at least, to kind of express these things, but it's not great for you, the viewer, to digest them in terms of like, well, what's your motivation to listen to me talk about these things? And that's something I want to take into account more often, while also recognizing that the reason I'm creating is for myself, first and foremost, in the sense that no one's watching these videos in mass. And even if they were, and I thank you for watching again. Oh, I sound like a broken record there, I think, but I'm still kind of like coming to terms with what it means to have an audience. I've never really enjoyed performance. I really try to engage with the world from a place of authenticity, but I'm also very shy and timid and scared, and so it's difficult for me to be vulnerable and put myself out there. And so one of the things that makes it easier for me to do these videos is to imagine that no one will watch them, if that makes sense. But of course, there's still the hope that people do find them and watch them and find them meaningful and helpful in some way, because, I mean, I would just keep them to myself otherwise. But it's kind of a way of like making something that matters to me to some small degree, and then letting it go in the world. Here I have this idea, and I'm trying to concentrate on articulating what it's like to experience, but then I upload it, publish it, and it's no longer mine, or at least it's no longer only mine. I put it out into the world, and it's no longer kind of my property as much as just me giving permission for other people to look at it, interact with it, engage with it, come to their own conclusions about it. And that's what I like about social media, and that's what I like about YouTube, is like with these small channels I've been getting still recommended a lot of small channels where it's like, you need, why I make videos that nobody watches, or like why you should make YouTube videos even if you don't have an audience. And I'm more in love with the idea of those videos than actually watching them. I usually just go straight to the channel and subscribe to see what they do in the future. But in terms of giving my full attention to them, I'm usually more kind of plugged into these podcasts or audiobooks, or these like video essay discussions on these culture war issues, gender identity being one of them. Free will determinism is a conversation that's been happening a lot recently in my feed. Politics, Israel, Palestine. These things are happening in the world, like social justice, any and all philosophy, any and all psychology, any and all anthropology. Very interested in the history of humanity, the Anthropocene, and I want to kind of synthesize all these ideas that are coming into my head and put them on a paper and kind of articulate them in the video format to make them more accessible to other people and kind of make more clickbaity titles eventually. But I'm also just interested in playing around with the media format. Like, what exactly is it that drew me to video in the first place? Is, well, in middle school, we started getting assigned video projects instead of just like 5-paragraph essays. And so I started using the software more, and I find it really fun and compelling to make things with video, moving images and sound, audio, and I just kind of stuck with that, and I continue to study that later in life, even in the face of no real likely job prospects. And here I am, years later, probably. It's difficult to say if that, college was worth it, but I mean, it's helped make me who I am today, and it's hard to imagine that not that long ago I couldn't imagine myself being happy, or at least being content, or at least just not being depressed and not wanting to not be alive. And so this is just another small part of my journey towards reclaiming my personal agency, my self-determination, and being able to be proactive in making the meaningful changes and taking the necessary steps in order to take responsibility for my desires and to make my dreams a reality. And that's one of the things I'm trying to do with this channel slowly, is kind of get accustomed to being more front-facing, public, online, and start spreading messages that I truly believe in and improving the discourse that's happening on here, because so much of it is regressive or fundamentally dichotomous in ways that you can't really resolve the issues that are important to be talked about. But digital online media, the screens, kind of flatten all the discourse into this very rudimentary, alien kind of communication where it's just the symbols, the letters, the phonetic alphabet and you lose all the facial expressions, the body language, the inflection, the subtext, all that presence is sucked, vacuumed out of the text, and it exists in this kind of like void of just pixels, right? And so it's difficult to, like, the history of humanity did not really prepare us for this moment of such an abstracted kind of communication. That's interesting to me. And so I want to, do my part to engage online, improve the discourse, and also kind of make this channel a space for reflection, for thought, for conversation, for learning more about the world and becoming more sure in ourselves that we're going to be okay. And I feel like that might be becoming more and more a radical notion, because it does feel like the world is ending, especially for young people, especially for poor people, especially for people of color, for women. I'm hesitant to start these lists because then it kind of becomes an example of identity politics, but I'm just trying to gesture at the fact that there's a certain way that society is set up, the way that culture perpetuates itself, and it definitely isn't serving the people, the majority of people. And I want to be part of the movement to take on that project for liberation. This is, in some sense, an emancipatory vision that I would like to play a role in actualizing and creating a better future by engaging with critical consciousness, the facts of our lives today. And so, again, I'm only 25. I still have much to learn. I've had certain privileges and certain disadvantages in life, and I've certainly had my fair share of mess ups and ignorance has certainly played a role in many of my experiences, but I've also developed a kind of ferocious appetite for knowledge and for learning, for improving connections, and wanting to communicate, even though it feels like, in some sense, I have a communication deficit where I'm not able to express myself to the degree that I would like. I don't feel like I can be understood, and I want to change that. And so I want to do my part in at least improving my language capabilities. And I know that might seem strange because sometimes I don't come across as maybe a know-it-all, or at least eloquent with language, and then able to kind of like play with the form a little bit. But in like casual everyday discourse, casual everyday conversations, chit chat, small talk, I'm just not. My brain doesn't function well, and I want it to. I want to be able to exist on that level with people, not have them feel like they have to talk about only like deep philosophical topics with me. But my natural way of being, at least my orientation in life of least resistance, is definitely kind of operating with that framework of wanting to understand the universe on a core, basic level. Wanting to know at the level of maximum truth what is any of this. But I also need to remember I need to feed myself, I need to eat food, I need to have a healthy diet, I need to exercise, get outside, sunlight, get enough sleep. Like these things are just as real and just as important. It's difficult to remember that sometimes. And so yeah, I'll wrap this video up. I know there wasn't really a point to it. I think I just wanted to think out loud what I might want for this channel moving forward, because I do feel pulled in a certain direction, and I do want to make a difference in the world, and I want to not be shy about that like I have in the past. I don't think it's a bad thing to want to positively influence culture, but at the same time, I also don't. I want to approach it from a place of humility and as a student of life, rather than someone who has all the answers. As much as I would like to have all the answers, it's just not possible. It's shoddy methodology at best, pride and fascism at worst, probably. So yeah, if you got this far, let me know what you think. Why are you still sticking around? There'll be more weird videos in the future. I'm going to definitely kind of experiment with forms, so don't be surprised if I start uploading and publishing different types of videos. Maybe not even talking videos, just like B-roll that I've accumulated over the years that are just like sitting in my memory archive that I would like to share. Because it's low stakes, and like if it doesn't interest you, you just scroll by. But I think it will be fun to kind of play with the form of this channel in the time being. And so maybe we can think of this as a new era of Luke, where I'm trying to be more open, not as tied down to, well, I said I was going to do this, so I have to do this, and I can't do other things. And just see where that goes, because, you know, I think I have 90 subscribers right now, which is, I haven't been paying that much attention to the speed at which my subscriber count has been going up, but it is nice to see some effect, and I'm glad for the random people who somehow algorithm recommended me. But I'm just going to keep doing this. I'm going to do my best to figure out this thing called life and do what I can to communicate with y'all what exactly that might mean. This is a learning process together. So until next time, whatever that next time might be, peace, love, and all that jazz.